You know what separates good teams from great ones? Good teams need the perfect conditions. Great teams create their own. Champions? Champions don't care where you put them on the map. They'll beat you at your house, at a neutral venue, or in the middle of the ocean, if you build a pitch there. The Springboks just proved they're in that third category. And if you're an All Blacks supporter, you might want to sit down for this one. For decades, rugby has operated on a simple principle. Protect your fortress, win at home. Make visiting teams uncomfortable. The altitude in Johannesburg, the cauldron of Ellis Park, the fortress of Eden Park in Auckland. These weren't just stadiums. They were psychological weapons, but something shifted in 2025, and the entire rugby world needs to pay attention, because the rules just changed. Let's rewind to September. All Blacks had something to prove. Their fortress at Eden Park remained unbeaten in regular test matches since 1994, 31 years of defending that sacred ground. When the Springboks arrived, the message was clear. You might be world champions, but this is our territory. And for 80 minutes, that message held true. The All Blacks defended their castle, sending South Africa home with a loss. The relief in New Zealand was palpable. Maybe, just maybe, home advantage still mattered. Maybe the fortress walls could still hold back even the best team on the planet. But here's where the story gets interesting and where the All Blacks probably wish they could rewrite history. 1 week later, the teams met again. Same country, different city, Wellington. Still home soil for New Zealand. Still their crowd, their conditions, their advantage. Every textbook in rugby history says the home team should have the edge. The Springboks walked into that stadium, carrying the weight of the previous week's defeat. And they didn't just win. They didn't just beat the All Blacks. They absolutely dismantled them in a way nobody saw coming. The final score? 43-10. Let that number sink in for a moment. The All Blacks at home, in front of their people, suffered their worst home defeat in history. Not their worst defeat of the season. Not their worst in recent memory. Their worst ever on home soil. The same home advantage that supposedly protected them 1 week earlier. Completely evaporated. The fortress didn't just crack. It crumbled to dust. Now, you might be thinking this was just one bad day at the office. Teams have off days, right? Even the best sides occasionally lay an egg. But this wasn't about New Zealand having a nightmare. This was about South Africa making a statement that echoed far beyond Wellington. The message was clear. Your home advantage doesn't intimidate us anymore. Your crowd doesn't shake us. Your familiarity with conditions doesn't matter. We're coming to beat you wherever you are, and there's nothing you can do about it. But the Springboks weren't done proving their point. Fast forward a few weeks to October. The Rugby Championship needed a finale, and here's where it gets fascinating. The tournament organizers decided to hold the deciding match at Twickenham in London. Not South Africa, not Argentina. Neutral ground, thousands of miles from both nations. No altitude advantage. No home crowd to lift you when you're tired. No familiar changing rooms or pitch conditions you've trained on for years. Just two teams, 80 minutes, and the championship on the line. This is where lesser teams falter. This is where the absence of home comforts becomes an excuse. The travel fatigue, the unfamiliar surroundings, the lack of that 12th man in the stands pushing you forward. But the Springboks didn't just show up. They delivered when it mattered most. They went to London and secured back-to-back rugby championship titles on neutral territory, proving that champions don't need the safety net of home advantage. Think about what this means. In the span of 1 month, South Africa absorbed a defeat at the most impenetrable fortress in world rugby, responded by handing out the biggest humiliation the All Blacks have ever experienced at home, then flew to Europe and won a championship on neutral ground. That's not just resilience. That's a complete rejection of the idea that location determines outcome. But modern rugby is evolving faster than many people realize. Players are fitter, more professional, and better prepared for travel in different conditions. Teams study opponents with such detail that surprises are rare. The mental game has become just as important as the physical one. And this is where the Springboks have built something truly special. They've constructed a mindset that doesn't need external factors to perform. They bring their own intensity, their own standards, their own fortress mentality to every match, regardless of the stadium name on the tickets. So where does this leave the All Blacks? That's the uncomfortable question nobody in New Zealand wants to answer right now. For years, Eden Park was the safety blanket. Even when the team struggled elsewhere, they could always point to that unbeaten record at home and say the fortress holds. But after Wellington, that argument rings hollow. If the Springboks can put 43 points on you at home, the fortress isn't protecting you anymore. And here's the really troubling part for New Zealand. The Springboks didn't need home advantage to prove they're the best team in the Southern Hemisphere right now. They won the championship on neutral ground. They've shown they can win anywhere, anytime, against anyone. The All Blacks, meanwhile, are now in this strange position where their traditional strengths have been exposed. Home advantage couldn't stop a record defeat. Experience at Eden Park helped them win once, but the Springboks adjusted and came back stronger. The psychological edge completely gone after Wellington. This isn't about disrespecting New Zealand rugby. The All Blacks remain one of the greatest sporting institutions on earth. Their history, their legacy, their contribution to the game is beyond question. But we're watching a changing of the guard in real time, and the shift is uncomfortable for everyone who grew up believing certain rugby laws were unchangeable. The Springboks have figured something out that most teams are still learning. Championship teams don't make excuses about conditions or location. They don't wait for everything to be perfect before they perform. They impose their will on the opposition regardless of the circumstances. Whether it's the altitude of Johannesburg, the rain of Wellington, or the neutral environment of Twickenham, they bring the same intensity and execution. This mental shift is what makes them so dangerous moving forward. Other teams are still calculating their chances based on where they're playing. Home games are circled on the calendar as must-wins. Away games are approached with caution, with talk of damage limitation and respectable performances. The Springboks have moved beyond that thinking. Every match is winnable, every venue is conquerable, every opponent is beatable. For the All Blacks, this presents a serious problem. Their next encounters with South Africa can't rely on home advantage as a deciding factor anymore. Wellington proved that they can't assume the Springboks will struggle away from home. Twickenham proved that they can't even take comfort in knowing they won at Eden Park, because 7 days later they suffered their worst home defeat ever. The traditional advantages that New Zealand rugby has built its success on for decades are no longer reliable weapons. And the teams that succeed won't be the ones with the best home record or the most intimidating stadium. They'll be the teams that can win anywhere, that can adapt to any condition, that bring their own standards regardless of external circumstances. The Springboks are writing the blueprint for this new era, and everyone else is scrambling to catch up. So what does all this mean for the future? It means the next time these two titans meet, location won't save anyone. It means the All Blacks need to find answers that don't involve home advantage because that card has been played and it failed spectacularly. It means every team in World Rugby needs to stop making excuses about travel, conditions and circumstances because the Springboks just proved none of that matters if you're genuinely the best. The championship has been decided, the statement has been made. Home advantage isn't dead completely, but it's been severely wounded, and the Springboks are the ones who delivered the blow. For the All Blacks and everyone else chasing South Africa, the message is clear: beat them on merit, because nothing else is going to save you anymore. The question isn't whether the Springboks can win away from home. They've answered that emphatically. The question now is whether anyone can stop them anywhere at all.